Did you love seeing that and singing that and believing that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so what it says to me is faith is thrilling. That causes faith in me, and it's thrilling. And I love the teaching. I love teaching on faith. I love someone teaching faith to me. And we've emphasized the truth of faith most of our ministry days. And I just want to say this, it's never boring to me. I never say, I've got that. Let's move on to something else. I've never done that. No, the more I hear it, the more I want to hear it. And the important thing about our faith is that faith is our part. Now, I'm going to say a few things, and if you would like to just sit there and let an atmosphere of faith come over you, I'll email you these notes, because as I began to make these notes this week, I was just thrilled with what God was saying. The important thing about faith is our part. So when you're faced with a situation, we need God's part and our part to arrive at victory. And here's what God's part is. God's part is power, and our part is faith. And they work together. So every time you hear faith being taught, you're hearing how better to do your part. That's why it is so valuable. That is why I never get tired of teaching faith or hearing faith, because we've got to become skillful in the flow of faith so that we're skillful in bringing our part. It's like a teamwork. Everybody's got a part. Everybody's got a position, and everybody needs to get in position and become experts at their part or their position, because when you're skillful at bringing your part, then God's part is easier for us to cooperate with. God will always bring His part, but here's the deal. It's faith that is needed for us to cooperate with God's part. So we want to become more skillful at faith, and the more skillful we are at faith, the better our life would be. And we could agree that we want a better life. And so it has to do with our faith life. If you look, and I remember watching KU basketball when they were in the national championships, and they were doing good, and then by halftime, they were like way behind. And so they came out and they played, and then they won. And I remember seeing an interview of one of the players, and he said this. They said, "Well, what happened? What did you do different? What did your coach say?" And he said, "Our coach said we just need to do the fundamentals." It wasn't like there was some big play. There wasn't like you need to rebound more, which is a fundamental. But and the same is true whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about, well, really any endeavor. There are foundations and fundamentals to move forward in whatever the subject would be that we're talking about. And in God's Word, there are foundational truths. And faith is one of those foundational truths. And we have to become skillful at it if we want to be successful in whatever God has called us to do or authored for us. So let me say this: victory is not automatic. He has provided it for us. But the victory that He's provided for us is waiting for our faith to show up, and I can prove it by the Word. This is the victory that overcomes the world, even, you can finish it, our faith. So our victory is waiting on our faith to show up. There's just a part that we have to play, and it's a fundamental of our Christian life. And if we want to have the best life, then we've got to become skillful in our faith, because when faith shows up, victory goes into operation. And I'm ready to see that. When faith shows up, victory goes into operation. So that's why we want to make sure that we're skillful in faith. Faith is fundamental. It is a foundational truth in our life and the life of every believer. If we're going to experience God's best, it doesn't just happen. Now, that doesn't mean God is sovereign and he can do whatever He wants to do, but He wants us to work with Him in this area of faith. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to examine our faith. We're going to have to inspect our faith. We're going to have to make sure that it's in good working order. And I remember when my dad got my first car, he said, now I'm going to show you how to take care of this car so that it'll work when you get in it and turn it on. And so you need to check the tires, and you need to check the oil, and you need to keep it clean, and you need to make sure that vehicle is in good working order. So it's the same thing in our faith. We need to make sure that our faith is strong, and that we are free from anything that damages our faith. And what is it that could damage our faith? Let me tell you, the main thing that will damage our faith is fear, worry, unforgiveness, and just getting in the middle of the chaos of stuff. And it's not, sometimes we don't have to deal with chaos. I don't mean that. I don't mean like pretend like something isn't really going on. That's not what I mean. But you can deal with something without getting emotionally involved in it. And just stuff that you encounter on a daily basis. It comes to everybody. So you have to know what to let in and what to let out, because we're in a period of time right now where we need to protect our faith. We cannot let offense in, because if I do, my faith is damaged, and one of these days I'm going to need my faith to work. One of these days I may need a miracle of some sort, and I'm going to need my faith working. Now, can God work a miracle without me? Absolutely. Don't hear what I'm not saying. And this is what overcomes the world, even our faith. So the best thing to do is to always have our faith strong and free from anything that would cause us not to believe. And another thing, too, is we need to feed our faith. We need to, and you know, I had this experience with my dad. And so it's like I went up there, and he didn't have any energy. And so my aunt and uncle come over. They look in Dad's refrigerator, and he doesn't have like anything in it. They went to the grocery store, and they bought a bunch of stuff, you know, high protein stuff and meat and all of that stuff. And so my Aunt Mary looks at my dad and goes, "Richard, now I brought you some stuff to eat. You don't have any energy because you're not eating anything. So I'm going to fix this. I don't even know what it was. I'm going to fix this for you. And Herb and I are going to sit here, and we're going to watch you eat every bit of it." And he did, and he felt so good that he got up at 94 years old and mowed his yard. So we have to keep our faith fed, just like we have to feed our bodies so that we can have energy to do whatever it is we need to do. And we need to stay away from anything that diminishes our faith. So if it's the news on the TV, or if it's somebody telling their stuff, then if we just need to bow out of that, we need to do everything that we can do to protect our faith, or not listen to something that diminishes the importance of faith, because that is a strategy of the enemy. Yes, it is. Anything that would rob us of our faith is going to be a strategy that the enemy is going to use. And when our faith is weak, he has a place of entrance. Now, there's something right there. So we need to guard our spirit. We need to guard our hearing against anything that would diminish the need for faith in our life. And check out what Jude in the New Testament says. It's just a very short book. I think it's only like one chapter. And he made this statement, and Jude says this: I exhort you. I'm telling you, if you're going to listen to anything, you're going to listen to this. I exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith. Notice the activity of those words, earnestly contend. That's not apathetic. You can't be apathetic, not in this day and age. You can't be apathetic about your approach to faith. You've got to have an aggressive decision that my faith is my part in order that God would facilitate his part of power. So we earnestly contend to lay hold of greater faith, more faith, become more skillful at faith, because evidently Jude knew something that we need to know, and that is there is something opposing and trying to take our faith from us. So we've got to earnestly contend for what is against our faith, and we say it does not win. We earnestly contend for this faith. And then not only that, the word says the just shall live by faith. So somehow or another, we don't even know how to live daily life without faith. Then another thing it says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. You can't please God without faith. Now, I don't know about you. I want God to be pleased with my life. Now, I'm going to say something might be a little controversial, but, you know, Deanne's not here, so I'm just going to go ahead. God loves everybody. Yeah, he loves everybody. But you know what? I don't want him to just love me. I want him to be pleased with me. You know, I've got some kids, nephews, nieces, and I love them. But there's just sometimes when they have done things and it didn't please me. You know what I'm saying? But it didn't change my love for it. God loves everybody. I understand that. But I don't want him just to love me. I want him to be, and that's amazing, that like God Almighty loves me, but I want him to be pleased with me, and it can't happen if I don't have faith. Faith is what pleases him, and so I don't want to overlook that factor in a believer's life. It's not just that God loves me, and he does. Is he pleased with me? And another thing about faith is without faith, you can't receive all that God has for you. Now, he is a loving God, and just like we give people that we love stuff, and it's like they don't ask or whatever, we give it to him, but we can't receive all that God has for us. This is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. So there's a part of this that we can't receive without faith. And check it out. If you don't receive what he has for you, he's not pleased that you're doing without. Now that's a headbanger right there. He's not pleased when you're not in faith because he can't bless you the way that he wants to bless you. So is God limited? No. He wrote the book. He wrote the book. He's not limited. God does not withhold. So don't hear what I'm not saying. He does not withhold. But we're unable to receive whenever our faith is not expressed as it needs to be. If it's not operative, if it's not moving, then God is robbed from blessing us. It doesn't please him when he can't bless us the way that he wants to. Another thing about faith, tell your neighbor, Sandy's on a roll. Another thing about faith is the word tells us in Hebrews, is talking about when God delivered Israel out of Egypt. There is an incredible thing that's said about faith, and it is said that the word preached did not profit them. Wow. That's an amazing statement. The word preached did not profit them. The word preached did not profit them. Why? Because it wasn't mixed with faith. That's profound. And we all know that, but we need to know it in this context that I've just talked about the last few minutes. So if we're going to profit from the word, we're going to have to add our faith. So it is true that you can hear the word all your life. But if you don't mix faith with that, the Bible says there's no profit to you. So we can understand that then there's never a time in our lives where we can dismiss faith. That's why we've got to work at it. We got to work at it. We got to strengthen our faith. We got to feed our faith. You can sit in church all day long under the teaching of the word but not receive what God has for you, because faith has to be mixed with the word or it doesn't work right. I want faith. Remember what I said at the beginning of this. Faith turns the word into power. Yeah, faith turns the word into power. God's word is just words in a book. But when faith is mixed with that word that's written down, it transforms that word into power. This is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. Say faith. So apparently we can't even receive victory or lasting victory in our life without faith. So we're just going to keep on feeding our faith. We're just going to keep on listening to faith. The world, here's what the word says. I said all that to get to this part right here. The word tells us that those that were of faith were the children of Abraham. The Bible calls us the children of Abraham. Remember, Abraham is the father of our faith. And so the Bible calls us the children of Abraham, not because of bloodline, but because of faith line. We're in a line of faith, not a line of blood necessarily with Abraham. So Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And those who believe God are children. You've heard that term. We're children of Abraham, again, not by bloodline, but by faith line. So because the New Testament calls us children of Abraham, then we need to look as children of Abraham what Father Abraham did. How did his faith operate? If he's called the father of our faith, and we find that in Romans chapter 4, one of my favorite chapters, and it's regarding Abraham. And we know that Abraham didn't have a child. He and his wife were well up in years, and the word of the Lord came to him. Now, this is a key thing concerning our faith, and the faith that causes us to walk in victory and the word of the Lord came to him, and God said, I have made you a father of many nations. Now, he says that, obviously, and we know this story, but sometimes you can know a story so well that you miss the whole point. And he said that to a man who's childless. He said that to a man who's 75. He says that to a man who's married to a woman who was called barren. So that would say to me that God is a faith God. When he's looking at these two people, they are old, and God is saying, I have made you a father of many nations. And because God is a faith God, God speaks faith words. It takes faith ears. Put your hands on your ears. It takes faith ears to hear it and not disconnect from it or dismiss it. It takes faith to hear what a faith God says. So he says to Abraham, not I'm going to make you a father, I have already made you a father of many nations. That's faith talk, isn't it? I've already made you a father of many nations. And then it goes on to say, before him, whom he believed, even God quickens the dead and calls those things that be not as though they are, who against hope believed in hope that he might become the father of many nations. And God said, I have made you. I have made you. I'm not going to make you. I have made you already the father of many nations. But it says that Abraham, we're talking about the father of our faith. We're talking about the faith that Abraham had. It says that Abraham hoped against hope that he might become. Notice God's already made us something. But when you add your faith to it, you become what he's already made you to be. That is a mind bender. You add your faith. That's what Abraham did. He's the father of our faith. We're looking to see what ingredients that Abraham had and added to his life in order to be called the father of our faith and the father of many nations. God has already made us to be something, but we add our faith to it to become. Say, I'm going to become what he's called me to be. Let's just say that he's already made me the healed. But I got to add my faith to that to become what he's already made me to be, healed. He's already made me prosperous, but I've got to add my faith to it. This is what Abraham did. He's the father of our faith, the father of many nations. He was that before he was that, but he had to add his faith to it to become that. So when you add your faith to the fact that God says you're prosperous, that I delight in your prosperity, you become what he already made you to be, prosperous. We don't want to live this life not becoming what he made us to be. We want to become what he made us to be, whether it's prosperous, victorious, peaceful, joyful, healed. We need to become that. And how do you become that? You add your faith to it. You demand of your life what he authored, what he has already said that you have. You demand of your faith to become that. So this is how I shall live, and I will not settle for anything less than what he has made me to be. And listen, I don't even know whether this is theologically correct, but I don't want to get to heaven and him show me what I could have been. Now, like I said, I don't know whether that's theological, but it's kind of how I think. I don't want to get up there and go, you know what, this is what I called you to be, and it didn't happen. I want to become that now. That would just be that. I want to believe what he said, and I want to add my faith to it. So here's Abraham. He called those things that be not as though they were. Who against hope? He had to press. There's the hope, and that was pressing against him, and so he had to press against that he might become the father of many nations, according to what was spoken. Not being weak in faith, and considering not his own body now dead, nor the deadness of Sarah's womb, he staggered not at the promise of God. I want that to get on the inside of us through unbelief, but he's strong in faith, giving glory to God, being fully persuaded that what God has said, God is able to perform. So there is a little bit of a checklist, just a couple of things in this portion of Scripture that are ingredients for Abraham's faith. And you know what? If it was good enough for Abraham, the father of our faith, then it's good enough for us, since he's the father of our faith and we are children of that faith. We just need to do what he did. So let's look at a couple of the ingredients of faith out of Romans chapter 4. The first ingredient is this: Abraham called those things that be not as though they are. The operative word there is called. Faith has a behavior. Faith has a command. What does faith do? Faith calls. You call for something that hasn't shown up yet. Duh. If something is right here, I don't call for it. I call those things that be not as though they are. So we can be confident that we are the victorious, confident that we are the healed, confident that we are the prosperous. Why? Because that's something that God has said to us. So what we have to do, remember, our part is faith, his is power. So we add our call to what God has said. Many of us are not calling enough. So since he called me healed, I call myself healed. And I do it, and since I ran across this stuff, I'm not calling myself healed like once a week. It's like I'm thinking about it all the time. And I'm thinking about I am the anointed, and I am healed, and I am prosperous, and I do walk in wisdom, and I am strong. You know what I'm saying? That is my faith speaking, not based on something I want, or I want to be big, or I want to be important. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's based on what God said. And that's what faith does. Faith calls. Faith calls. That's the ingredient that Abraham had going on, and he called those things that be not. And sometimes we overlook that because our focus is on the thing that is not. And you get all messed up when you focus on the thing that you don't have. Well, I don't have healing, and I don't have enough money to pay my bills, and I got all this strife going on, and I blah, 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 blah. You're focused on the thing that is not. No, we need to focus on the call. Now, I just said something right there. And so what does faith do? It calls. It has a call to it. You call those things which have not yet manifested to come into manifestation. So faith sees that thing over there in that other realm. It's manifested over there in that other realm, that higher realm. It is, and you call for it to come. And how long do you call? This is not very profound, but you call till it shows up. The important thing is that you don't call yourself something unless you know God has called you that. That would be the point. So you add your calling to what he's called you. So you have to know what the word says about you. So listen, that's why we have a pastor. That's why we go to a local church. That's why we listen to these ministers of the gospel, because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So we add our faith to that. So we add our calling. Faith calls. We add our words to that so that we become what he's already said that we are. It's not enough that he's called you. We have to agree with it. You don't become that because he's called you that. You become that because your faith believed what he calls you, and your faith agrees and says the same thing. So the first ingredient that we see in Abraham's faith, who is called the father, the father of our faith, the first ingredients is he called those things that be not as though they are. He called. And you have to find out what the word says so that you call that. So you might have been raised in poverty and somebody may have called you poor. You might have been unable to learn some concepts and people might call you different things based on that. But you've got to quit calling yourself what God doesn't call you. If God doesn't call you something, then it's because that's not what you are. God calls you what you are. And if you call what he has already said you are, he'll back you up. I love that. He'll back you up. He calls you healed. You say that, he'll back you up. I call myself healed. It may not look like I'm healed. I may not feel right. It may not look like I'm successful. When it feels like that faith calls. Faith calls. It knows. It knows I need a manifestation. And the only way that the manifestation is going to come is if I call it. I'm going to call it. You'll become, so you become, or a situation that you have authority in will become that when you call it. You call yourself, we're kind of stuck on healing. Symptoms may show up in your body that calls you sick, but I don't call myself what my symptoms call me. Now, that's easier said than done, but you know what? Vicki got up and came, and her symptoms say, my knee is hurting, but I call myself healed. That's an example of that. So we want to always make sure that our calling agrees with what God has already called you. Not my idea, not what somebody else's idea. Well, they got healed, and no, it's what he has said and you have discovered in his word. So our calling always is in agreement with what he's already called us. You don't have to figure it out, but you have to find it out. That's why we need to sit under the word of the Lord and ourselves be a student of the word. Matthew 8 says this, himself took our infirmities and bare my sicknesses. It talks about that in Isaiah 53, 2, 1 Peter 2. By his stripes you were healed. Not you're going to be healed, you were healed. Help me, Lord, just to get this on the inside of me, on and on and on. He calls me healed. My body is saying I'm in pain, but the voice of pain might say I'm not healed, may have said that, but I'm not going to call myself that. I may have to deal with the pain, but I'm not going to call myself. I'm going to call myself what God calls me. That's what faith does in the face of something that seems contradictory. Yeah, to all of that. So then our circumstances come in line, because we call those things that be not as though they are. So the first ingredient is we call those things that be not as though they are. So whatever God says about me, I call myself that. I call myself supplied. I call myself I've got more than enough. And the Bible is showing us this great, great truth that what you call is what comes to you. What you call is what comes to you. If what you need is not showing up, let's just do more calling. Let's don't beat ourselves up, and let's don't say, well, that works for them and it doesn't work for me, or they see things and I don't see things. Don't do any of that. Don't beat yourself up. If what God has made you to be is not manifesting in your life, let's just say it's waiting on you to call. By the words out of your mouth. We're just going to call it and call it and call it and call it and call it. And so really, sometimes we're not getting what we need. We just need to keep on calling. He called those things that be not. Could it be that the measure that you call it is the measure that you receive? Could it be? Could it be? So, you hear what I'm saying. So we are thankful that we are healed and that we are supplied and that we are prosperous and that we are peaceful and all of those things. And this is a great truth, that you are what you become, what you call. So the more we need it, just call it. Call it more. Call it more. Now the second ingredient in Abraham's faith is that Abraham believed according to what was spoken. I'm not just going to make up something. I'm not going to make up something that well, they got it, and so it ought to be mine. I'm going to believe according what was spoken to me. He obviously didn't believe according to how old he was. He was too old to have babies. His wife was barren, and she was too old to have a baby. He didn't attach this faith to feelings or how he felt or how old he was or his emotions. He simply, and I say simply, attached his faith to what God said. And he believed according to what was spoken. That's what's said in Romans chapter 4. He didn't believe according to what was seen. Okay, he's all shriveled up. His wife is all shriveled up. He believed in line with what God says. So that means if others say something, it means if I say something, I feel something isn't going right in the earth. If it doesn't, let's just keep it like this. If it doesn't believe with what the Word of God says, don't believe it. Just don't believe it. Faith believes for one reason. Because God said it. Let's just go with that. Faith believes for one reason, and that is because God said it. If we're going to have strong faith, if we're going to have victory, we've already talked about this. This is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. If we're going to have victory in our life, we got to go back to one question. That's the question that Abraham went back to, and he's the father of our faith. What did God say about this? What does God say about this? What did God already tell me about this? Because if God says it, it's enough for me to believe. We've just got to come to grips and say that again and again and again. What did God say about this? If he says it to me, then that's enough. And here's what God says. He delights when his people believe him without any proof. That's the essence of faith. The essence of faith is believing, is the essence of believing when you have nothing. Hebrews chapter 11. When you believe it simply because he said it, then let's just say this. The proof of it is that it will show up. Hey! So if things are different from what God says, it has to change by the way you call and you believe. So we got to go back to, if you don't call it, things will stay the way they've always been. Oh my gosh. So we have Abraham's faith as a example for our lives. Our successful, wonderful, prosperous, I'm so happy I can't stand myself life. You know what I'm saying? So we have Abraham's faith as an example of our life. So what's the first ingredient in Abraham's faith is that he called those things that be not as though they were. Obviously, he didn't get caught up on the thing that wasn't. He was calling that thing that wasn't there. And then God said, it will come. If you call it, it will come. Let me get that on the inside of if I call it. If I call it, it will become. Say this, that describes me. I'm a caller. Hey, I'm a caller. And I call it every day, all day, not just once a week, every day, every moment. I am calling. And I'm even calling in behalf of those around me, but it is way more significant if they will call. They will call. They will call. Abraham called those things that be not, and he's the father of our faith. So the second thing is believing based on what God said, not based on what my body might say or the news may say or people may say around me or statistics may say everything's getting bombed, everybody's killing each other, what all of these organizations that are run by the devil, what they say. No, we're not going by any of that. I'm not believing based on what my finances say, what any of, I'm believing based on what God says because I live by faith. The just shall live by faith. I am living my life by faith. That is the way that I live. The just shall live by faith. So I'm not going to settle for anything less than a faith life. I'm not going to, because that's the best life. It's the best life. So say this, I believe that's the best life. I'm going to call those things that are not manifested in my life, I'm going to call those things to come. I'm going to call the things that God has revealed to me in His Word. Nothing else. That'll be it. I'm calling those things that God has said in His Word. Now let's lift our hands. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you, God, for faith. I thank you, Lord, for what you're doing in all of our lives. And so, God, we call those things that be not as though they are. We know that, God, you have said that every seat in this sanctuary would be full. We call those things that be not as though they are. We believe the word of the Lord for revival over that we would be at the face of revival. We call that. That is something you said. You said that the day of restoration is very near. We call that into this place, that God, you would be exalted, that your name would be lifted high, and that there would be a great harvest. So we bless you and we thank you that we have been watered by your word of faith this morning to just keep on adding our faith. And as we add our faith to the word, it turns to power in our life. In Jesus' name, amen.